Hello and welcome to The Top Story, the podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Qizhi. Coming up in this edition, nearly 100 people have died in an Israeli airstrike on a single residential block in northern Gaza. The UN Security Council has condemned Tel Aviv's decision to ban the UN's aid agency for Palestinians from operating in Israel. And South Sudan has declared a local cholera outbreak in a northern county on the border with Sudan. We begin in the Middle East. Nearly 100 people have died in an Israeli airstrike on a single residential block in Beit Lahia in northern Gaza. Rescuers scrambled to find survivors from Tuesday's attack as Israel pursued its offensives in Gaza and Lebanon. The Gaza Health Ministry said at least 20 of those killed were children. Israel made no immediate comment on the attack. Rami Al-Magari reports.
That was the deadliest Israeli airstrike in the past period, in the past 3 weeks, more than 3 weeks, when Israel started its operations in the northern Jabalia refugee camp. This intensity of Israeli airstrikes are unprecedented since the operation started, and this seems to be the deadliest because of the intensity of the flow of people from Jabalia into Beit Lahia, the nearby Beit Lahia town. People are just displaced into family homes of their relatives, friends in the near Jabalia refugee camp. And this was the deadliest Israeli airstrike on the area. These airstrikes continue unabated in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip as people have begun fleeing the area because of the intensity of the Israeli army actions into the northern parts of the Gaza Strip. Also, another major strike took place in the central Gaza Strip village of Zawaida, where 25 people have been reportedly killed and dozens others injured on this deadly airstrike in the Zawaida village, actually. These developments on the ground come against the backdrop of resumed ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas, while both parties, Hamas and Israel, have not sent their say about these talks that have some kind of offers from the Egyptians, from the Americans and the Qataris. These actually the latest updates from the Gaza Strip, and it seems for the people that Israel is negotiating under pressure, under military pressure by its military in northern Gaza Strip and other parts of the coastal enclave.
That was Rami Al-Magari reporting from Gaza. Hezbollah has named Deputy Leader Naim Qassem as its new head. Qassem replaces Hassan Nasrallah, who was killed in Beirut in late September by an Israeli strike. Israel said Qassem's tenure would be temporary. Jonathan Regev has more.
I think what Israel is saying could very well be seen in the tweet by Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, saying that any leader of Hezbollah is one that Israel is intending to target. We could see it in the case of the successor of Hassan Nasrallah. His name was Hisham Safi Adin. He held the role for about 48 hours before he was killed by Israel. And according to the defense minister, according to the Israeli defense establishment, Naim Qassem, who's now officially the leader of Hezbollah, should expect a similar fate. This according to Israel. And as Naim Qassem was proclaimed as the new leader of Hezbollah, there was a violent day on the Israel-Lebanon border. Israeli forces operating inside Lebanon, carrying out various strikes. There are reports of tens of people killed in Lebanon. Israeli sources say most of them come from the ranks of Hezbollah, as some intense fighting has been reported between the maneuvering IDF forces and Hezbollah. Whether there's a new elected chief, an official elected chief or not, the war is ongoing. Israeli forces are operating in Lebanon, and Hezbollah continues to fire rockets into Israel.
That was Jonathan Regev in Tel Aviv. Still on the Middle East, in North America, the UN Security Council has condemned Tel Aviv's decision to ban the United Nations Aid Agency for Palestinians, or UNRWA, from operating in Israel. This decision will significantly hamper the delivery of aid and humanitarian services to Gaza and the West Bank. Mitch McCann reports from New York.
Moments before the Security Council convened in New York Tuesday morning, Israel's permanent representative to the UN, Danny Danon, sought to defend the decision. Danon used a printed image to show what he said proved UNRWA workers were also operating as terrorists for Hamas.
These vile scandals cannot be swept under the rug any longer. This Council, the international community and the entire UN must confront the facts that UNRWA Gaza is beyond redemption, beyond reform, beyond any justification. We must turn the page now.
The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said in a statement the implementation of Israel's new laws on UNRWA could have devastating consequences for Palestinian refugees and would be detrimental for ending the conflict. The Secretary-General's statement was supported by the Special Coordinator for the Middle East peace process at the Council, Tor Wennesland, who noted the death toll of more than 42,000 Palestinians in Gaza and 230 UN staff. Palestine's permanent observer to the UN took aim at other members of the Council, who he chose not to name, accusing them of standing by while Israel continued to commit crimes.
Will you allow Israel to dehumanize us further as part of its attempt to erase us? Will you? Will Israel succeed in making the destruction of the Palestinian people, starting with northern Gaza, acceptable to you? Or at least convince you it is inevitable and there is nothing you can do about it?
China's permanent representative, Ambassador Fu Kong, advanced China's demands for a peaceful resolution, calling for a ceasefire without delay, while blasting the UNRWA ban.
Closing the agency would be a new round of collective punishment of millions of Palestinian refugees in the region, and it would severely affect the humanitarian situation, security, and stability in the region.
Israel says it stands with its international partners to ensure it can continue facilitating humanitarian assistance to civilians in Gaza, but it's many of those same partners condemning its decision to ban UNRWA.
That was Mitch McCann in New York. In Africa, South Sudan has declared a local cholera outbreak in Reng, a northern county on the border with Sudan. The health ministry also confirmed an outbreak in the county's transit camp, which is housing refugees and returnees. No deaths have been recorded so far, but officials expressed concern of the disease spreading to other parts of the country. Patrick Elliott reports.
A cholera outbreak has been declared in Reng, a town near South Sudan's border with Sudan. Reng is being used by aid agencies as a transit center for many of the refugees and returnees from war-torn Sudan. Officials there say efforts are already underway to curtail the outbreak.
The Ministry of Health, with support from WHO, has already delivered necessary supplies including rapid diagnostic tests, RTDs, cholera kits, and emergency health kits.
The World Health Organization says the Health Ministry's declaration of an outbreak is critical as it will focus the minds of millions of people into taking it more seriously. The UN Refugee Agency, or UNHCR, says South Sudan currently hosts more than 810,000 refugees and returnees who fled fighting in Sudan. Many of those people entered South Sudan through Reng. WHO says it is working with other health partners to take the necessary steps to contain the outbreak in Reng.
The key challenge that we need to keep a close eye on is the spread. Many of the cases that have come so far have been either returnees or people associated with activities in Sudan. These people move across the country, and we just need to make sure that we keep our surveillance in Juba, in Malakal, in Maban, in all these other areas, to make sure that if there are any cases, we're able to pick them up.
South Sudan has one of the most underdeveloped healthcare sectors in the world, according to the World Health Organization, and the influx of refugees and returnees from Sudan is putting more pressure on an already weak health sector, and the country is struggling to cope.
That was Patrick Elliott reporting. In Europe, a recent report has painted a grim picture of the auto industry in Germany. Some 186,000 jobs may be slashed by the year of 2035 as a result of the ongoing transition to electric vehicles. Trent Murray reports from Berlin.
This new report from the Association of German Automakers really underscores some of the structural challenges that they are facing. The report says that by the year 2035, 186,000 jobs here in Germany could be lost. And they say of that number, 46,000 have already gone. They say in large part that is because of the big transition that German auto companies are having to make from petrol combustion engines, an area where they've really seen success over several decades really, to electric vehicles. And it's on the EV side that many industry insiders are saying they are struggling to compete, particularly with some of those brands from China and Asia more broadly. Now, what the association is saying is that they do need major structural changes in order to try and compete. They say issues include the high price of electricity, tax rates, and increasing red tape. And they say, and I'm going to quote from the report here, is the fact is that we need a competitive location with the right political framework conditions so that we can add value for the cars that are made and try and employ as many people in Germany as we can in the sector. It certainly is a damning report from an association really which is seen as the voice of all of the major German brands that we know so well. It makes for some worrying reading about the sort of trajectory ahead here. The industry, it would appear tonight, sounding the alarm on the future of German automaking more broadly.
That was Trent Murray on the outlook of the auto industry in Germany. Finally, we'll take a look at China's latest journey into space. The 3 taikonauts on China's Shenzhou 19 mission have entered the Tiangong space station and met the Shenzhou 18 crew. They reached their destination after the spaceship made a fast, automated rendezvous and docked with the Tianhe core module. The new group of taikonauts lifted off from northwest China early Wednesday morning. They would take over duties from the Shenzhou 18 crew, who will return to Earth next week. Sun Ye has more.
It's the start of a new Shenzhou mission. The Shenzhou 19 crew, led by Commander Cai Xuzhe, will spend the next 6 months on board China's space station. Joining him are Song Lingdong, a former pilot born in 1990, and Wang Haoze, China's first ever female space flight engineer to head into space. Early on Wednesday, before dawn, the Shenzhou 19 was launched into space, propelled by the Long March 2F Y-19 carrier rocket. The launch was declared a complete success.
This year marks the 75th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. It's been 25 years since the Shenzhou 1 was launched. It's a special time. Next time, it will be Shenzhou 20.
The new crew will replace the Shenzhou 18 crew that's currently on board the Tiangong space station. They will return to Earth in the coming days. As for the newcomers, they've got quite the agenda up in orbit. Science experiments and tests focusing on various fields including life sciences, multiple spacewalks, and educational activities on space science. The Shenzhou 19 mission had come as China is actively prepping for its first manned lunar landing, aiming at 2030. China Manned Space Agency has said the trainings for the taikonauts has now included elements that will prepare them to drive lunar rovers, identify celestial bodies, conduct geological surveys, and walk on the surface of the moon while bearing weight.
That was Sun Ye reporting on China's latest manned space mission. Now recapping the headlines. Nearly 100 people have died in an Israeli airstrike on a single residential block in northern Gaza. The UN Security Council has condemned Tel Aviv's decision to ban the UN's aid agency for Palestinians from operating in Israel. And South Sudan has declared a local cholera outbreak in a northern county on the border with Sudan. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to The Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news and magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Qi Zhi. Thanks for listening.